Ian, look at this.
What, it's a police box. What on earth's he doing here? I mean, these things are usually on the street. I feel it. I feel it. Do you feel it?
Faint vibration.
It's alive.
Earth Station Who, a fun mashup exploring over 60 years of the Doctor Who universe. Hold on tight. You never know where the crew of the TARDIS is going next.
Hey there, listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Earth Station Who podcast. That's right, folks, we're back, and we're going back to the world of Big Finish, and we are looking at the Paternoster Gang. We're looking at Trespassers 1, Rogues Gallery. It should be a ton of fun to be able to talk all about this one, because the three of those characters, Strax, Jenny, and, of course, Madame Vastra, is just amazing. It's great characters that, you know, we've been saying for years they should have their own TV series. And, you know, this is just as good because they haven't been seen on TV for over 10 years now, which is, you know, hence the gray in all our beards. So it's, you know, exactly. So it's going to be a ton of fun to talk about this one. And there's 3 stories in this set. So we'll do each story individually, but we'll do one rating at the end for all of them combined. So I think that's fair if we do that. Let's say hey to this crowd of great Whovians we have tonight. Of course, returning back once again from a sabbatical, Melanie Dean.
Hello. I was terrible and forgot the last episode was my husband's birthday, and went. Oh yeah, that's right. We have reservations and everything. So yeah, sorry I missed last time, but I'm back.
She wrote us like a half hour before. It's my husband's birthday, and it's like I forgot. I'm such a dork. I don't think I'll be back in time.
Oops.
Happy birthday, hubby.
At least you didn't remember it in the middle of recording the episode.
Exactly.
It could have been worse.
Crap. He's waiting for me at the restaurant.
I had my dates wrong. I literally had thought that the 26th was going to be tomorrow, or the next day, and I was like, oh no. So I mean, I had everything planned. I had the reservations. I had everyone going. All that. Just I didn't realize it was that night and not the next night. So sorry.
Gotcha.
Sorry, guys.
Mm-hmm. Sure, it's okay. It's okay. It's your one newbie mistake with us. It's okay. It's good.
Calendars.
Let's also say hi to, of course, our other regulars. Let's say howdy to Mr. Mike Gordon.
Howdy.
And Ms. Mary Ogle.
Hi, everybody. It is fantastic to be here.
It is great to see you guys all together, and it's going to be fun talking some Big Finish. And folks, if you want to leave feedback or anything for us, please, as always, feedback at Earth Station Who is the best way to do it. And if you made it and are watching us and enjoying us, please, right below, like and subscribe. That's the best way to do it, and a thumbs up. And if you're listening to us in audio, 5 stars. That's all we could do. Give, a star for Strax, a star for Jenny, a star for Vastra. And, the doctor's in this. That's another star. That's 4 stars. And for our smiling faces, that's worth 1 star. So 5 stars right there. Not too bad. I was pulling it out of my butt, folks. It really is. But it's cool. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk about this. We're 2.5 weeks away from the Christmas special by the time this comes out. And, I'm looking forward to it. We talked a lot about the trailer last week, so we're going to be, holding off from, going about the teaser trailer that they put out this last week. And at least they didn't wait till right after we recorded to do it this time. So it's always a plus with that. But, it's kind of cool. And I'm jealous as hell because in the UK, there's so much Doctor Who stuff going on around Christmas this year. On the 23rd, I think they're going to be showing War Games on the iPlayer, I think, or the Whovian thing that they have over there. And then, of course, they have the new episode. And, they just have all this different Doctor Who stuff going on. And I think they're also releasing the concerts that they do. It's going to be broadcast one time on iPlayer or on BBC, I think, also. So
The
have
proms?
all that. the problems. It's pretty cool and everything.
Cool.
So yeah, and us here in the United States, we get the Christmas special, so it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, everyone else in the world is just like that. We're just watching. It's a good thing to do. So it's going to be a ton of fun, though, to watch the Christmas special with our family and everything. And you know what? It's going to be nice to be able to celebrate with everybody and, have Doctor Who back on Christmas, which is nice because it's been a few years since we've had that.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah, that is nice. I
Mhm.
missed it on Christmas.
It's a nice thing because, as I'd like to say in my house, we, watch Doctor Who and then go out for Chinese. So it's perfect,
It's a good
It's a
tradition.
good thing to. It's a great tradition. So it's a great thing to do. And you know what, folks? We'd love to hear sometime what your guys' holiday traditions will be. Do you gather around with the family and watch Doctor Who, or are you gonna just catch it whenever you can? Because once it's on Disney, you could watch it as many times as you want. So it's a good thing with that. So very cool stuff. Other Doctor Who news, we'll wait till the next episode or two to be able to start talking about that kind of stuff. Because I'm pretty sure, and I almost guarantee it, we will get a trailer for the new season of Doctor Who at the end of the Christmas special.
I hope we do.
There'll probably
I
be
think it's
something,
great.
yes.
Yes. So I'm looking forward to that, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. So, you know what, folks? We're in for a big treat with Christmas time. So, all right. Since we don't have any other Doctor Who news, let's jump in with both feet. We're going to go back to the wild years of October 2023. Seems so far away. And we got Trespassers 1, and they subtitled it Rogues Gallery. And it's a neat story because it's 3 separate stories, but these stories, you don't think about it and you don't find out until the very end that they're tied together. And it's a lot of fun to do it. What were your initial thoughts listening to this coming back? We'll start with Melanie since she wasn't here last time.
Yeah, Mel, before you, have you listened to the others with them? Is this your first time listening to the Paternoster Gang
No,
audios, or did you listen to Heritage as well?
I've heard Heritage before. So I listened to, how many is Heritage, just 1 or 2?
I think it was.
I can't remember. Okay, but I know I've listened to one set, and I think it was
4
Heritage.
sets.
Yeah, I know. I think I've listened to.
It was 4.
I did not listen to all of them, but yes, this is not my first foray into Paternoster Gang.
Gotcha.
Right.
And what are your feelings about the gang and the audios so far? Before
So
you
far,
going into this?
So going into this, I knew that the 3 main cast, the cast members really do well with timing, and it's like once I started listening to Paternoster Gang, then I realized, oh, this is what Big Finish really can be. Because I would listen to other ones, and like sometimes other Big Finish would be like hit or miss with different doctors and companions and that kind of thing. But these 3 just, they were, I don't want to say like they were born for audio, but they were born, at least they were born and bred for just being able to perform together. And hearing this in an audio form it's just wonderful just to having them together.
And I'm sure it's wonderful for the actors because they don't have to put on the makeup and the costume.
Right.
I know, right?
Right.
Or Nev is
Jordan, right.
yeah.
She's pretty happy.
That's
Yeah,
great.
Well, too.
It's funny because Michelle and I are currently getting caught up with All Creatures Great and Small on the most recent season, the 4th season. And in one episode, Nev McIntosh is featured. And throughout the episode, I was distracted because I kept hearing her voice, and I was like, I know her, but yet the looks didn't really, because I don't usually see her. Even when I saw her as this character, I mean, I she's using makeup most of the time. I mean, I know what she looks like, and we've seen her in person and all of that. And I've seen her in other things, but it was really like most of the time when I hear the voice and when I think of her, I don't think of her as she looks. I think of her in the makeup or just her voice because I've heard so many of these audios now. So yeah, it took me a while to click that it was her in that episode. She was great in, by the way. And anybody who's not watching that show should watch it.
Oh yeah,
It's a fun show.
and we're going to be getting the new season of that fairly soon. So.
Yeah, early next year. Yeah. So and that's one of those ones that's weird because they show it in Britain first, and then they wait like 2 months and
dare
show
they?
here.
God forbid.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man. Like that's like be like Doctor Who. Show it like all at the same time.
You know how many years it took us to get to that point, though, dude?
I know it did.
Yeah, we're lucky to have it now.
But
Exactly.
I mean, well, yeah, that's the good thing. We're lucky to have it now because a lot of the other shows that the BBC does still don't do that, which is just mind-blowing to me. So anyway, Mel, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But
Mel, back to you. What did you think? What?
No. No, I mean, I was like you were saying in the beginning of this episode. I saw Rogues Gallery and I thought that they were going to be 3 separate, stories completely. And that was their way of trying to tie the 3 together a little bit, even if it was just kind of like, oh, we're releasing these 3, they're kind of together. But at the very end of the 3rd one, then you realize, oh, wait a minute, these are connected very well, and that there's going to be more. And if you were listening to this back in October 2023, you had no idea where the heck you were going to go, and that's why it's kind of nice, because after the fact of this one, at least I was able to read the snippets of the next ones to go, wait, what was going?
Exactly. Because
I like cliffhangers within the series. So if I'm listening to a set, and I know it's 1, 2, 3, and then there's a cliffhanger in it, fine. It having a cliffhanger at the end, if I was listening to this last year, I would have been irate because I am not patient. I don't like waiting. But anyway,
So I guess we're going to have, for Mel's sake, I guess we're going to have to review the next one sooner than later.
Please. Yes, please. Although it did throw me off a little seeing on the image of Paul McGann on the box and hoping that he was in a little bit more than he really was. Used very sparingly, but I'll take whatever I can of McGann.
No, exactly. All right, Mary, what about you?
I liked the first one. I thought the second one was okay, pretty good. I did not like the third one. But I did like the cliffhanger.
Yes.
The cliffhanger was fun. And it almost redeemed the third one.
No, that totally makes sense. That actually totally makes sense. Because, it was interesting because the first one felt like it was a story we've seen and done. Some people capture aliens and use them as, for showpieces. And we've seen that a zillion times, not just Doctor Who, but other storylines and everything. And I liked the little twists they did with it, though, and the connections they had to Vastra, which was nice. And so I thought that was the strongest one of the 3.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I really liked the first one. I enjoyed the first one a lot. And I love the way they connected it to Vastra. I thought that was a very clever thing to do rather than just have them to be random, aliens.
And then in the second one, having the intelligent, basically the pterodactyls, and it was just like, So, and then Vastra, also a tie into Vastra, which was interesting. And then the third one didn't have a tie into Vastra at all. So her past. So it was interesting.
Well, her present.
Yeah, it was definitely her present. Very much her present.
And her future.
Oh, yeah. Knowing that she, spoilers, married the wrong person.
The wrong person.
Exactly. So you think. So it'd be very interesting to see.
Yeah.
Mikey, what about you?
Yeah, I enjoyed all 3. I mean, I'm glad to have the Paternoster Gang back. I think the stories are generally we really liked Heritage all the way through, all 4
Mhm.
volumes. I don't recall anyway there being a bad one in the bunch. I think some were better than others, obviously, when you deal with Big Finish. You're going to get that. But I think the quality was so good that you could almost, it's like you said, Mike, we haven't, those people complaining, oh, they should have their own series. They do have their own series. This is it. And I don't feel like that there's anything missing by not having, like, this is not doing anything that a show couldn't do. In
Mhm.
fact, it's doing more than a show could do. And I think the writing is just as solid as it would be if it was a live action, maybe better. Who knows? But so I really appreciate the chemistry of the cast. I like this time period, and everything that goes with it, and the way they explore that too. So yeah, I was glad to have them back. I really appreciated the first one, and as we talk about, go into details. There's more to say about that, of course. The second one I liked a lot too, written by Dan Starkey, which is awesome.
Yes.
But it has, it's one of those, like, what do they call them, like closed room mysteries or whatever,
Mhm.
that like a Sherlock Holmes thing. So, and I really appreciated the fact that that one was, they split them up, but yet they still managed to find a way to intersect them, which to me didn't seem too contrived. I thought it still felt pretty natural, and I thought it was really well done. Um, and yeah, the third one's a bit of a mess. Um, and I didn't know what to make of it until the end when I was like, okay. Um, but as we'll get into it, I think the great thing about the ending, the cliffhanger, is that it dials back to the first story. So it doesn't really have as much to do with the second story or the third story, which is, like I said, a bit of a mess.
Oh,
But overall, I still really enjoyed everything. I mean, I thought it was produced really well, and I still thought it was enjoyable to listen to.
no, I thought the cliffhanger tied very well into the third story because that explained how there was another Santarin, that there was another, Vastra. And, so it was,
Did
and
it though?
yeah, but then also another, but yeah, and that this person has been messing with the whole stories and everything.
I
That
don't think.
because he even was like, he even was the eighth Doctor in
I
it.
think the attempt was there, but I'm not convinced that it was successful in really
Right.
tying that together. Uh,
It
I
just
thought
shows
that it
that
was
there's this
because
person interfering. So,
it seemed pretty random that what the roles that the doppelganger was taking, and so there's still a lot of questions there,
oh,
which
none of
will
the
be handled.
answers are answered.
But
Yeah.
I did feel like, especially after the first two, I did feel like the whole Trespassers, or maybe the theme of this, was going to be, tying into Vastra's history, her race's history with ancient Earth, and that kind of thing, which I guess still remains to be seen whether that is going to come out of the events of, or anything to do with the third one or not. So, I don't know if that's where they're going with the whole Trespassers thing. The fact that her race still claims to be the original Earth people, like the people of Earth, like the beings of Earth, like the native Earthers, so to speak, and
Mhm.
anybody else, even humans, are really considered trespassers.
Well, possibly. It's a good thing to see. It was interesting though. Let's go through the stories. The Ghost and the Potato Man, which I love the name of that one,
It
Best
just sounds
title
and
fun to
ever.
say.
I loved seeing Strax the Entertainer in this one.
Yes, he was
That was fun.
great.
Hmm.
Uh, I love Strax in every one of these stories, in all three of these. It was
You like
just
the way
brilliant.
that they have him doing the Big Finish intros, all of them.
Yes.
For
Yeah,
the love
yeah.
of stories.
That was that was great. I love that.
No, I thought he should do all of those. I think that would have been awesome if he could. But I thought it was very well done. The first one, it was interesting because Vastra kept on thinking about that she was I recognize these from when I was a child, and you know, and she says that because she was like going, this seems strangely familiar, and she kept on tying into that, and it was real interesting to see that storyline and such, and I thought it moved very quickly. It didn't feel like it was dragging because there's some big finishes we've listened to. It's like, oh, how many chapters does this have left? And everything. So but it was interesting to see. And, I kept on thinking of like the Barnum and Bailey sideshows and everything with it. And it really was pretty cool.
Yeah, it has a very pantomime vaudeville sort of feel. The
Yes,
old,
vaudeville.
yeah, the old music shows, and
Exactly.
they do
They had
it
their
well.
slogans. They had the slogans that they were talking about.
I really like them tying it in with Jago and Lightfoot, that series. And I do wonder if because Christopher Benjamin was in the last volume of
Right.
Heritage. And that was a great tie-in to have that character there. And they do mention him there. They do name drop him here. I do
From Mr.
wonder if when they
Yep.
were writing it that maybe they had a role for him, but I mean, he's still with us as far as I know, but I don't know if he's in any condition to do any work. And I hope he's doing okay because I would love to see him appear again. But yeah, I like the sort of the fact that they tied it in and the whole theater district. And yeah, I mean, you can't get more London than the Victorian London than the music halls of back then. So I think that was really realized great. And to me, the best part about it, like you said, Mike, the plot is kind of like, okay, they're using an alien. We've seen this before, blah 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 blah. But I really liked Big Finish in the way they handled the audio of the aliens because even though we're told that they're beautiful, but that's kind of hard to depict. And I thought audio wise, they did a really good job at giving the aliens a ethereal, is that the right word?
Yeah.
Quality. That
Ethereal?
ethereal. Thank
Ethereal.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, urethral is an entirely different thing.
Yeah. That's what I was like thinking. I'm like, that's not right. But ethereal quality that just really worked so that they did sound like ghosts. They did have that spirit quality to them that I thought was really effective. And sometimes I'm pretty critical of the effects that Big Finish puts in their audio with characters because sometimes I think they just do it to do it, and sometimes it's hard to understand what they're saying, and I just don't appreciate that. But this time I thought it was really effective.
Yeah, I agree. It was nice to be able to understand them, but still feel like they were alien.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because the first two stories had the aliens in it, and the aliens in the first one were very easy to understand, but you could hear the flowiness to it. And but in the second one, I was actually having a little trouble hearing what the pterodactyls were saying, and so it wasn't as clear.
Yeah, I mean that's often been a problem in Big Finish. They go a little heavy on the sound effects for the voices, and it makes it hard to hear.
Yes.
And it wasn't quite even like this. I had the same problem with the second one too, but it wasn't quite as bad as it has been in the past. But
no.
yeah, they
Right.
need to be careful about that because it
Right.
really detracts when you're, trying to strain to hear what it is they're saying. I mean, I love all the tie-ins with Vastra. I hope they don't let that go in the future volumes. I hope we get to explore a little more where she came from and what makes her who she is today because she's such an interesting character.
Yeah, and
Oh, she's great.
I think at least in most of the stories that we've heard and seen, more emphasis is now on her as a great detective or as her as Jenny's wife than it is that she's a Silurian.
Mhm.
like like we don't really get that that tie-in and what that means. I mean, we get many people, freaked out because she's a, lizard or whatever, but what does that mean for her? How does that weight of being like an original native earther, like really, like what, how does she feel about that? And I like the idea that we're getting to play with that a little bit here. I hope that's the theme of this. That's what
Yeah,
trespass
I hope
means,
so too.
Um, so I hope that that's the way that it plays out, but we'll see. I mean, it's still kind of early, and yeah, even though we have a cliffhanger and a definite baddie, so to speak,
Mhm.
it's still kind of unclear as to what is going to be the mythology of this whole run.
There's definitely a theme of relationships running through this one. I mean, you've got
Oh, very
Jenny's
much so.
parents,
Mhm.
Jenny and Vastra, the
Yep.
woman and her fiance.
Yeah.
It's yeah, and I mean, it's nice that they're exploring that, though I really did not like the whole Great Expectations trope thing.
Mhm.
I hope they just let that go because it
Oh,
did
yeah.
not work.
Oh, but it didn't work very well. But the whole thing with the wedding dress and
Mhm.
such, and oh, stay away from the armpits. Oh, stay away from the pits. It was just like, oh God, 30 years of wearing the same outfit. Not showering or bathing. It's just like, oh my God,
Yeah, I
that's
mean, I know we're skipping to the third
horrible.
one, but yeah, that the weakest part of the third one to me is just, well, I mean, it just flows really weird because you're just wondering what the heck's going on, and that's not a bad feeling, but it doesn't satisfy at the end. You just still don't feel like you knew what was going on, or nothing really connected to me. And yeah, in the middle of it, you've got this sort of like woman scorned, in woman acting insane trope, and it just, yeah, it doesn't really fly. I think it's something that we need far less of, and I was kind of
Yeah,
surprised that it was to
Mhm.
see it in this used in this way.
Or the
yeah.
parasites on the dress that were killing, ruining relationships, and it was just like,
Yeah, that was just
Mhm.
dumb. I'm sorry, that
yeah,
was stupid. But
Yeah,
I don't
they had to
disagree.
tie it somehow to how
yeah,
everybody was all the relationships were having like discourse for some one
but
reason or another.
the thing was, you couldn't tell that that was any different than what anybody would be acting like in a stressful time leading up to a wedding or
Oh
in
yeah,
any stressful time in a relationship. It wasn't actually all that extreme. I mean, when they're bickering at each other, well, pretty much every couple bickers like that at some point leading up to a wedding because you're
oh,
just
Toss them
both.
both into an IKEA, see how well they fare.
yeah,
Exactly,
exactly.
exactly. I
Trust me,
mean,
it
it
happens
just
after
it
the
was
wedding
pretty
too. It
normal. And I
does.
was like, we don't need, I don't, are the parasites really doing anything? Because it
Not
doesn't
more
feel
than
that
anything normal.
different.
Not more than anything normal. So yeah, the third one was the weakest of the three, and but we find that a lot of the times with the stories, a lot of the river songs we've reviewed, the third one is always the weakest of the three.
Well, unfortunately, in this case, the third one, the weakest story, is the one that features the doctor, which is
Yes.
a shame because it's like that's the
Yeah.
one that's going to attract a lot of people, if anything. Because to that one, it's like, oh, this one's got a doctor in it, and I'm sorry, but what a waste of Paul McGann. I mean, you
Yeah.
kind of alluded to it, Mel, when you
Yeah.
said that he's not in it that much, and he has a couple of good lines,
Mhm.
but really, it's sort of like I felt like he was wasted in this,
Yeah.
and not in a I'm drunk kind of way.
Though maybe he was, we don't know.
But it
It's
just
your
written
own.
wise that he didn't need to be there. There was
No.
no reason for that character to be in there, and he didn't add anything to it at all.
Seems
So
like they wanted him just for that little kind of that time loop kind of thing of saying, oh, you left me at the altar or whatever, or the 35 years ago or what have you, and he was like, what? We've never met. That
Yeah.
little thing, it almost like, oh, we need you for a quick little plot device. that will tie up again in another episode.
Right.
Well,
He's like, he was wandering through the office that day, and they were like,
it's kind of like, but it's really tying to two things too, because in the Once and Future story that with the fourth Doctor, was it the fourth Doctor that we listened to?
Yes.
No, it was the 10th Doctor, right?
10th Doctor.
With the Paternoster Gang. Jenny
Yes.
mentions that the Doctor was at their wedding.
Mhm.
And so that's an interesting story to tell.
Right.
But this is not that story.
yeah, this is really not that story. At least I hope it's not that story.
Yeah, I mean,
I hope
maybe.
not.
I mean, as we find out, and I know we're jumping around here, but yeah, as we find out, it's not really their wedding, and I do hope that they do get a better wedding at some point. So,
Well, they didn't even really have a wedding if she married
Right.
somebody else.
Yeah.
right,
No,
right.
exactly. So it was interesting. Let's jump over into the second story. What were your thoughts on that one? Did you?
I enjoyed it. Like I said, I'm a big Sherlock Holmes fan, and to me, it felt like this is seeing them do detective work. I like the fact that it's set up like they had cases and they were going through them, and they were divvying it up, and then and I also like the fact that, and maybe it's because it was written by Dan Starkey, but I think too often Dan Starkey's role, or I should say Strax's role, is just for comedic relief. And too many times he just says something and then Vastra says, shut up. And then, they move on or something. But in this one, it seemed like, okay, well, he can actually has agency. He actually can do a job. He's not great about it, but he could do it. Right. And Vastra trusts him to do it. Like she says, she sends him to work this case. And I like to see that. I'd like to see that all three of them are capable of working separately on their own, but then when they get together, it's a force to be reckoned with. But and that was another problem I had with the with one of them. What's the one where she gets where Jenny gets kidnapped, and I was kind of like, oh yeah, that was in the first one. That was kind of the weakest part of the first one for me, where Jenny gets kind of taken, but she's all like, her only response is like, wait till my wife gets here. And I'm like, you should be able to. I mean, she does kind of escape on her own,
No,
but I kind of felt like that was something that she should have been able to handle a little bit better.
exactly. Well, Jenny is, like always been very kick-ass herself. She's a trained swordswoman. She's, she knows how to fight and everything. And, just the whole thing. Wait till my wife gets here. It's like, no, you can get out of this yourself. And that I found a little weak. But that also then leads into, was she kidnapped the whole time in the second and third storyline? Then.
Well, yeah, we don't know when.
Yeah,
she
we're not
was-
really sure.
Yeah,
They
we don't
really
know that,
establish that.
The
Exactly.
The other thing about the first story too is that she goes up against Vauxhall Vani, and she should be able to take her, but she doesn't, and she gets kidnapped and she gets taken. It's just like, okay, whatever. And then Vauxhall Vani, which I thought was going to get her comeuppance at some point, just
Didn't.
disappears. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
like they don't like. So if anybody was to come back at the end. I thought it was going to be Vonnie. Like, I thought, I'm like, oh, we haven't seen the last of her probably. And then, to find out that it's actually Reg that comes back, I think, at the end, right? Not
Right.
at the end of the
Right.
third story, not Vonnie. I was kind of like, well, that's kind of weird because we saw, Reg gets, we don't even know if that's the real Reg. But
Yeah, well, he's a less interesting character. It
Yeah,
would have been more
exactly.
interesting to bring Vauxhall Vonnie back.
Yep.
Reg
Yeah.
is just kind of there. He
yeah,
doesn't really do much.
right.
No,
Absolutely. Right.
that's a good point. But it's interesting too, because you had these different characters and you were like, oh, what happened to this person? They just disappeared. And they, I expected a little bit more for that. And, but it was interesting because I liked, like Mike said, I liked the Sherlock Holmes feel of the second one. The mystery of the man who checked into his hotel room and then vanished. He got
Mhm.
gas and everything
Yes.
and everything. And it was just like, okay, that was pretty awesome and everything. And it was fun. And folks, we're dissing on the third story, but all three of these are fun. They were good. There was a fun listen. And, I was listening while I was working today, and it was just, it was a great, day on a rainy afternoon to be able to listen to Big Finish and everything. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, the set as a whole is fun. I would recommend the set, even though the third story is the weakest, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
It's not like the set is a loss.
It's not terrible.
It's very entertaining.
It's not like it's a Chris Chibnall story or something.
Yeah.
There it is.
There we go. It's not an episode until we bring up Chris Chibnall.
Took like 50 minutes, but we got there.
I mean, it's
Right.
like for all of you doing the drinking game where you drink every time we mention Chris Chibnall, take a swig.
There we go, folks.
The funny thing is, like, for me, the fault I had with this one, and it's nothing, and it's more about me than anything on the three episodes, and it's that they all have such great chemistry. There's a lot of characters. There's a fair amount of characters, so it's not like your normal just two people. You have three plus all your extras.
Right.
And it is very, especially the second one's very Holmesian in that it's, it's complex. This is one of those Big Finish ones where I would recommend doing where you can pay attention a little bit better. Like this is one where I know I'm going to go back and listen to it, but probably like in the car, so I can really get into and connect all the dots and figure out everything. I was listening to this while I was working, but yet not when you're doing Excel spreadsheets, because my brain was really focused on something. So I know I was missing stuff, and I would go back and listen to it again. So I was getting all like the jokes and the timing and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of the comedy stuff, especially in the third one, getting ready for the hen party. I'm Strax. I've brought my chicken. That kind of stuff. It was fun. I think I would probably gonna rate this higher if I give it a better all my attention to this, because it really richly deserves it. But I was just terrible human being thinking I can listen in the background and I'll be fine. Not when my brain was having to pay attention to other stuff.
I know. I was doing the same thing. I was designing some web pages, and it was just like at the same time, I just sat there listening to the story. It's like, oh yeah, I got to keep on working.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
For those of us who gave it our full attention,
Terrible review. Melody, no.
Exactly.
Shame on you.
Shame.
I mean, really. But I will say, even so, I mean, it does require a lot, and I think because a lot of it is an accent that we're not familiar with. A lot of people are speaking in accents that we're not familiar with, and sometimes Big Finish has a tendency to either load it up with audio effects, those voices, or they take on character effects, right? Like, so they are doing, but I think also one thing that I've noticed, or I really became aware of during this run is, and I think last time we did the Paternoster Gang with Heritage, was that before the pandemic? Those were produced before the pandemic? I want to say it was, but I'm not sure. But in any case, it seems like Big Finish is either like cut their budget a bit or something or what, but it seems like a lot of actors are now playing multiple characters. And you have to be really, really skilled at voice work to be able to pull off successfully two different characters distinctly in an audio adventure. And I think sometimes it works in Big Finish and sometimes it doesn't. And so you get confused as to who's talking, which character is this, because they all kind of sound the same.
There was a couple times in the first and second story, I thought a lot of the female characters sounded a lot like Caton. I thought
Yes.
very much so.
I did get that too. I thought that Caitlin, I was convinced that Catherine
Remember,
Thank you.
we ran into this problem.
Yeah, I think Katrin was. I thought I was convinced that she was doing a voice of one of the characters that she was speaking to, actually, that Jenny was speaking to, and I was like, this is weird. And then it turns out when I listened to the behind the scenes stuff or whatever, the interviews, that it was a different woman. But she was still, that woman I think was still doing two characters. And this isn't even the third one, which is doppelgangers. It's like
Yeah.
like you expect people to do two different roles there, but no, so I do need to focus when I'm listening to these, just because of it's really easy to get lost, I think, in some of these, especially if they're not written as well as they could be.
Yes.
But that said, yeah, I like I said, I think the second one, in some ways, was one of my favorites. Might have been my favorite story of the three, just because it did have that Sherlock Holmes quality about it, and I really did like. Because I'm like, okay, well, they're doing two different cases, and I'm like, okay, they're probably going to tie in together somehow. We'll see if Dan Starkey can write that in a way that it feels, to use the title, symmetry, that it gives it symmetry, right? That it feels like it doesn't feel contrived. And I thought it was pretty, like, I love the fact that it was pretty early on where Vastra and Jenny were on the roof, and they're like, "Hey, there's Strax." Like, it's just
Exactly.
I'm like, that's fun. What's he doing over there? And what's he doing? Like, it just seemed like,
Exactly.
because I mean, that guy stands out, right?
Well, exactly. And, London isn't that big of a city, so it's okay.
So I thought they tied together really well, and I thought the two stories did tie really well together. And the pterodactyls weren't as interesting to me as characters or as species or whatever, or the voice on them, and what have you. But I still like the overall plot and the way that it was laid out.
Yep, exactly. All right. What about the third story, kids? Because that was the most, for a lot of us, the weakest one.
Yeah, I really didn't like it. I mean, it's just like Mikey G said, it was a mess. It was just a mess. I didn't like the trope of Great Expectations. I'm not a fan of Great Expectations anyway, but I've had enough of the oh, I've been pining for him for 30 years. I'm like, yeah, no.
Move on.
Yeah.
Get over it.
Or the
Yeah.
whole trope of, and unfortunately, it was a very real instance where, you guys were kind of joking about like how the stress of the weddings and everything like that is normal. You don't even need the parasites, but all too often the stress of what women were going through in that age, they were locked up, and that is just sort of glossed over here. Like I just was like, yeah, that happened, and I was kind of like, yeah, we should treat this a little bit more seriously than what you guys are doing.
Yeah, well,
Well,
they
even
also they do touch on a little bit about the class difference between how Jenny is perceived and how Madame Vastra is perceived. And I was glad that they did that because, women of that time led very different lives.
Oh, exactly. Then they even made her Jenny go to the back of the house because she
Right.
does the
When she
servant.
goes to pick up the wedding dress.
Exactly. So it was interesting with that, and it touches on the class system very much so, and the whole thing with her parents, being shysters and everything, and
Yeah, this is the first time we've met them, right?
No, we
No.
met them before.
yeah.
Oh, I
met
didn't
them in-
remember
Yeah.
that. So
That's
Yeah,
how
we learn
old
about
they were.
Jenny's backstory back in Heritage and how her
Yes.
parents are pretty abusive
gotcha. I kind of
and
remember
Jenny
that
runs
now.
away.
Yeah,
Yep.
I kind of remember
Yeah.
that now. So
Though, I mean, you got to think of it from that point of view. I mean, her parents are a product of their upbringing and their culture and just trying to survive in a world that looks down on them. And so it makes them a little more of a sympathetic character. If you and I think they've tried to introduce that a little bit in the first story. I'm not sure they were really successful, but I think they
No.
tried.
Yeah. Briefly, they tried to do it, but it didn't work. But
yeah, there's nothing here that gives them. Certainly by the end, where they show up at the wedding, because they do accept Jenny and Vastra, didn't feel earned to me.
Yeah, it felt very abrupt, but I mean, kind of nothing in that third story felt earned.
Well, yeah, that's what,
Yeah.
yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah, but and
absolutely.
like you guys said, it was like, wait a minute, I know that voice. That's Paul McGann's voice, because I didn't see the artwork, so I didn't even know the Doctor was going to be popping up in these. So it's just like, wait a minute, this is just. It's like, okay, but he was so briefly used. It was like, yeah, I know you want to feature on the other characters, but it's the Doctor. The Doctor should be fairly important into the
And this is the
story.
first time in a Paternoster Gang story that we've gotten a Doctor.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's a big deal.
Mhm.
And it's a Doctor that we that we want to hear more from. We want to see more of. And so anytime we get him, it's hopefully a great thing. And yeah, I like Paul McGann and I like his Doctor, and he's done some great stuff with Big Finish. But this is if you're clicking on this story, if you want to buy this story just because you love an Eighth Doctor adventure, this is
Nope,
not it,
this
I'm
is not it.
afraid.
Nope, 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 nope. So, yeah, so I think that's all we really have to say about this one. you know,
We didn't even mention Strax singing.
oh God. I was trying to forget that a little bit. Yeah,
We get a musical number at the
We
end
got a
of
song.
go. We get a
we did.
we get a musical number from the Potato Man.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
kind of a bummer that doesn't carry over. Like he gets a love interest in this story, but then the next two stories
He
they
doesn't
don't mention it
appear.
at all.
Yeah.
Don't do it at all.
Yeah, that kind of is sad, but yeah, that's not a through line there. But
I loved when Strax went to the gentlemen's club and he says they were going, "It's all men in here, sir." And he was like,
it's like,
even that boy over there with the weak little hands and the skinny arms.
the beauty of Strax, and Dan Starkey gets all the credit for this, is that the beauty of it is that the jokes are the same. The jokes are the same over and over and over again. He wants to kill things in battle. He thinks that, boys and girls and men and women look the same. There, he uses it that like constantly, all the time. And yet it never feels old to me. Like I never get tired of it. I never just roll my eyes. I'm not like I'm not like Madame Vastra who just like, shut up, stop it. I'm just like, yeah, more please. Because he's just his
Exactly.
delivery on it, and he's consistently just makes it fresh every time. And I just laugh every time.
Well, exactly. And it's interesting too, because like in the first story when Strax was getting into show business and he was drinking it up and everything, and Vastra goes, "Come on, it's time to go. That's it. No more." And he's like, "Oh, mom," it almost felt like. And so it was interesting. All right. Any final thoughts before we go ahead and rate this one?
And we like the theme again.
Yes.
Yes. The
Well,
music.
the theme is awesome.
Still much better
The
music.
theme and the music are top notch. So
Very much so.
credit to uh, Joe Kramer, I think is his name, that does the music and also sound design. I think he
Yep.
does an amazing job on this run.
Awesome, awesome. All right. 1 out of 5 TARDISes, one being the worst, five being the best. Mary, you got to go first this time.
Oh boy. It's almost a little hard to rate because it ends on such a cliffhanger. That it just feels kind of unfinished.
Oh, I
Um,
know. And when
but
it
it
did, I looked on the thing. Wait, no, there's got to be more. No, there's got to be another
no,
chapter.
no,
Are you saying that
that's
this was
all you're
produced?
getting.
Are you seeing this was a big unfinished production?
Yeah.
But
Mikey G, everyone.
okay. He'll be playing all week, folks.
You know, real quick, Mike, because I know we want to get out, but we're getting out, but we didn't even really get into the cliffhanger, because I think the beauty of the cliffhanger is not the fact that it's a cliffhanger and that, but I think what it means. The idea that Jenny is not Jenny,
Jenny's
She's been taken by this this villain for whatever purpose we don't know yet, and that Vastra's marrying somebody else or married somebody else,
Mhm.
and she went through all that and she was fooled. I mean, that's heavy. That's like that to me was like really, really much more than anything else in that story. All of a sudden, that scene like had weight to it. That you know, we like to think that our great detective can't be fooled, but man, she was really fooled on this one.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's actually pretty horrifying if you think
Yes.
about it from both points of view, from Jenny's and Vastra's.
Yes.
And it does make you wonder how they're going to deal with that in the further iterations. I hope they don't just gloss over that.
Well, so
I
many
hope,
shows
I
have
hope they
done.
take that
Yeah.
somewhere.
So many shows have done that, and they've kind of glossed over it. Oh, you were kidnapped and you were replaced by a doppelganger, and you slept with that person or you kissed that person, and you didn't even realize it wasn't me
Mhm.
and everything. They did.
Yeah, it's
They
been
did that big
done
time in The
many
Boys this last
times.
season, actually.
Well,
And,
they've done it
yeah.
in Star Trek and
Oh yeah, of course.
Stargate, and I mean
Yeah.
almost every fantasy and science fiction show has
Yeah, most
some
of the time they
trope.
just blow it off.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you didn't know, it's okay, type thing.
I have to think though, because this series and the series before it has been so solid that I'm confident, with some confidence anyway, that they're going to be able to pull it off well. Um,
Mhm.
you
I'll be
know,
very curious to see.
I will
Mary.
say if this was a River Song adventure, I would not be as convinced.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good point
Yeah.
there. Mary,
Well, in fact,
what's your point?
the writer of the third episode that none of us like on this one has written something for the next River Song Big Finish that we're going to do.
Oh, really?
So I'm
Uh,
hoping she
Well,
redeems herself.
Just hoping.
Open. Okay. Mary, give me your
Anyway, rating.
rating. One
I
out of
think I'm
5.
going to give it a 3.5 because I really do not like that last episode, but I like the first one a lot. I like the second one is my okay to good episode. The third one is bad. So I think, and my rating might change as the series goes along and we find out more about what's happening, and it might lead back. I hope it leads back to some of the stuff that happened here. But the production design is great. The sound design is great. The actors are amazing. There's a lot to recommend in this, and I highly recommend it, but I think I can only give it about a 3.5 right now.
Okay. Mikey G.
I think production wise and everything else involved, I think I'm going to give this a 4. I did enjoy the first 2 stories a lot, and even though the third one is weaker, I still think it's fun. It was fun to listen to, and yeah, like I said, Paul McGann is wasted, but he's still fun to listen to. And the cliffhanger makes me want more. So it accomplished what it set out to do, and I would definitely recommend that people check this out. This is a great series of stories that I'm really confident. I'm excited to get the second volume.
Awesome. That's totally fair. Mel.
I'm kind of echo both of them. I'm going with a 4. Because if I look at like all three of them, it's more like 4-4-3. But this is one where I'll just bring up the last one up to the 4. Almost like I want to give it like if this is a B, like this is a B- right now. And that I'm going to be able to, because I'm excited to listen to this in the car on the way to work, back and forth and back and forth. And that way to kind of, I really do want to re-listen to it and catch the things that I know I missed. That way I can really give it all of my attention. And then I have a feeling that by that point, re-listening to it, it'll probably go from like having it's a B- to a B to a B+, where this is still a 4-4-4. I have a feeling it's that's what's gonna happen. So I'm good with just giving this a 4 because it really was fun to listen to. It was just for me having to stop and go, wait, what? Rewind.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, I agree with
Wait,
that.
what?
It does happen. It does. All right. I'm going to do the 3.75 for this one. I'm going to go in between what Mary said and what Mike and Mel said. Pretty much, I liked it. It was enjoyable. It moved very quickly. The third one was the one that pulled it down from a 4. It was, it was the weakest of the 3, but it was still a good story. It was entertaining. It was funny when Habersham was standing on top of the roof as the insane asylum was burning, that she started the fire, and I kept on thinking, oh, Batman's going to show up or something like that. Instead you got Strax and Vastra instead, and so, but it was fun, and I didn't mind the Great Expectations tie-in, and I thought, I kind of giggled to myself about it because I had to write a term paper on it when I was in high school, so we had to go. I did too. Yeah. So many times, and and it's a fun story. Don't go see the movies of that. They've never done a good version of that movie, of the book. So I do enjoy it. And anytime you get to hear Paul McGann is always great, but I wanted more of it, and so that's where it brought it down. So the cliffhanger, I was like, wow, that actually surprised me. I fully was expected, it's going to have a happy ending. Vastra and Jenny are getting married. It's going to end on that note, blah, blah, blah. But no. Thank you, Big Finish, for doing that to us. I appreciate it. Now I'm really looking forward to getting this next one on the schedule, probably, not as long as we thought it was originally going to be.
Yeah, maybe we need to switch it for the next one.
So we'll see. We will definitely see. What did you guys think at home? Definitely would love to hear from you guys. Feedback at ourstationwho.com is the best way to do it. Definitely, if you've made it this far into the video or the podcast, rate us, subscribe, like. We do appreciate you guys. We don't say it enough, and thank you so much from all 4 of us. We do appreciate you guys very, very much. Especially, we just went through Thanksgiving here in the United States, and we are so thankful for each and every one of you guys out there listening. So thank you, as always. On behalf of all of us, Christmas is 2.5 weeks away, and we are going to be talking all about the holiday special. We're going to be talking about Joy to the World. But it's interesting. That was one thing we didn't bring up. On the UK version, it says Joy to the World. On the Disney version, Joy to the Worlds. I've noticed.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah. So definitely keep your eyes open for that kind of thing. So what does it mean? What does it, what are we going to get? We'll have to wait and see. But until then, of course, let's thank our crew for being here, of course, tonight. Ms. Mary Ogle, thank you as always.
It was great fun talking with you guys. I always have such a great time.
How is your show going at the gallery?
My show is going fantastic. I've had 6 paintings in the show, and I sold 5 of them.
Wow.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm very happy about that. What's wrong with the 6th one, everybody?
It'll be bought by the 5th dentist.
Right.
Exactly.
But seriously, yeah, it's been a great holiday show, and I'm very grateful to everyone who bought a painting of mine, and to everyone who listens to our podcast. It is you make the world a better place, and I'm very happy that all of you are part of our family.
That is awesome. Mr. Mike, thank you as always.
And as always, it's my pleasure.
And Ms. Melanie Dean, it is wonderful to have you back.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back.
You did remember your husband's birthday. It's okay.
I even have to think of, yeah. Anyway, yes. Exactly. So yeah, So, I'm just staring at shade.
So on behalf of all of us, thank you for everything, folks. We'll see you here next time on Earth Station Who. Peace, and we got new Who right around the corner. Yay. Bye.
You've been listening to Earth Station Who, a pop culture podcast dedicated to all things Doctor Who, featuring talents from throughout space and time. All topics on the show are the sole opinions of the individuals and are to be used for entertainment value alone. You can subscribe to our show wherever fine podcasts are found, or check out our website, earthstationwho.com. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook or Instagram, and if you enjoyed the show, please write to us at feedback@earthstationwho.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the next journey of Earth Station Who.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.